Former Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne has made controversial claims the outcome of Brexit is up for grabs and does necessarily mean a radical crackdown on immigration. Interviewed on BBC Radio 4's Today programme this morning, Osborne, 46, said Britain's departure from the EU should not necessarily mean leaving the customs union either. He also told guest editor and director of the English National Ballet Tamara Rojo that the referendum result last June should not automatically mean clamping down on immigration, in light of Theresa May's Commons defeat on the Brexit bill. The staunch Remainer has made the most of stepping down as an MP and becoming editor of the London Evening Standard by heavily critiquing the government's Brexit policy. Speaking today, he vowed to vigorously challenge the interpretation of Britain's decision to leave Europe. Interviewed on BBC Radio 4's Today programme this morning, guest editor Tamara Rojo, right, Osborne, left, 46, said Britain's departure from the EU should not necessarily mean leaving the customs union or single market. He said, ultimately the decision was made by the British public, and no one can complain that no one showed up, because it had the highest turnout of any democratic event in our country's history. But now we all have to pick up the pieces of that result. I will vigorously challenge how they, Brexiteers, want to interpret that result. I don't accept that just because we're leaving the EU we have to, for example, leave the customs union or radically clamp down on immigration. He continued, there was only one question asked in that referendum, and that was, do you want Britain to remain in the EU? How we leave, the new arrangements we have with Europe. How we allow people into this country to succeed, these are decisions that are up for grabs now in our parliamentary democracy, in which every citizen in this country is entitled to have a view. The government's current position is that Britain will leave the single market and customs union when Brexit happens in 2019. Speaking of his efforts for the Remain campaign, he admitted always being quite gloomy when it came to the referendum result. Speaking to Rojo, pictured right, Osborne, left, vowed to vigorously challenge the interpretation of Britain's decision to leave Europe. He said, I went round the country and I kept hearing from people I would assume wanted to stay in the EU that they wanted to leave. So I was pretty pessimistic, and there was quite a lot of nervousness when I sat down that night in Downing Street to watch the outcome. Sadly, as far as I am concerned, my fears were confirmed. The ballet boss also asked Osborne if he ever considered throwing his hat in the ring for Prime Minister. But he replied, the truth was I had been too partisan in the Brexit referendum. I don't regret that at all. But I was so strongly of the view that it was a mistake for Britain to leave the EU, that after David Cameron resigned when the vote went the other way, I just didn't think that I was in any position to unite the Conservative Party, or indeed that I wanted to spend all my time and effort on a project that I did believe in, which is taking Britain out of the EU. He added jokingly, now of course from the chair of a newspaper editor I look with some amusement at the circus going on to see who will be the next Tory leader.